Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and it is tier list time. Blizzard just dropped another bombshell of class tuning adjustments for the game that are going to be coming in on Tuesday, and I wanted to make a video predicting, trying to anticipate where the specializations could be landing as a result of those changes. And as always, if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. So we got a lot of specs. Let's get going. We got the Affliction Warlock. Now this guy, he's doing quite a bit more damage than he was before, and they are starting to target some of the cooldown classes and bring down the power of their cooldowns. They are also bringing down the strength of Mistweaver and Holy Paladin, which were your direct counters as healers at the moment. So Affliction might have some possibilities, but I am more conservative with my prediction and my placement with it. My anticipation is that it will probably feel somewhere between a B and an A, so like a high B, maybe a low A in terms of overall power. It still doesn't have that massive burst hit. It does rely on surviving and kind of overwhelming, which is the playstyle of the specialization. It's just really hard to stay alive that long, especially with all the melee DPS that are likely going to be targeting you down. Now, of course, this is like PvP on the whole. If we talk battlegrounds, I actually think Affliction is starting to get really good in battleground situations, but in arena, it's kind of holding its overall ranking back a bit. Arcane Mage, this is a bit of a wild card. They just randomly buffed the crap out of Arcanosphere by like 200 something plus % damage, and they are also changing a talent to buff your Arcane Blast damage. Now I've seen some PvEers saying that that change is not really, it's kind of a meme, so I don't know if that will translate into also being a meme for PvP as far as Arcane Blast actually being a viable button to use and do a lot of damage with maximum stacks. I really wish they would. I feel like that would make Arcane easier to play and easier to understand if it went back to just like mashing the Arcane Blast with full stacks and seeing really big crits and trying to manage your mana on top of that. I kind of missed that playstyle, and anytime I see someone come in my stream like Arcane's really hard, I'm like, maybe changing this would make it a bit easier to play or understand. It's still kind of a burst range DPS, right? So within the scope of the meta, I think it is still strong. We did see Marksmanship Hunter nerfs, but it's kind of weird because they buffed some other things like Black Arrow, which could still make them very strong. I think they probably are still going to be very strong. They didn't target the true shot window or the volley window, but I do think Arcane will probably feel better than Affliction just strictly because it's a high burst class in a hard burst meta, and it synergizes really well with a lot of the melee DPS. However, what's holding it back from A+ or S is the other mage specializations having some advantages. Arms Warrior is another one that's a wild card. They've been buffing their damage for past couple of weeks, and it's now in a really phenomenal spot. Does a lot of damage. They're buffing your defense through ignore pain mitigation, and they are trying to help you out with crowd control by giving you additional kind of like, I think it was snare removal. So in battle stance, it's like 10% reduced. Now it's 35% reduced. I do kind of wonder if you went Troll Warrior, if somehow that changes everything, but you still can't get out of Roots of the Avatar. So it's, or with Rally. So it's, you're probably still going to have to play a Gnome, is my anticipation, but I could see it doing at least a bit better. So I'm taking a bit more of a gamble with it. It's still kind of conservative because I could see it swinging hard, maybe possibly to S, but I'm going more conservative with it on my prediction here into A tier. And then obviously once the changes go live, we play through the changes. We'll review this tier list. We'll review the placement of everything after that fact to see how like on the money we were or not. But again, I'm going a bit conservative just because these guys have been kind of towards the bottom end, but I do think that the ignore pain defense is going to be pretty nice, as well as some of the nerfs to some of the classes that were kind of difficult for you to deal with is also another thing. Assassination Rogue, unfortunately, I think is still just like not stupendous. Even with Subtlety Rogue, you know, getting some nerfs, some players have been telling me that one of the talents that got nerfed, some rogues don't even play it. They spec into the other option that's available to it. So it might not even end up feeling like a massive nerf to Subtlety Rogue. And it's really tough because there's a tournament coming up and the rogue mains who want rogue to be strong to win are like propagandizing, saying it's going to be terrible after this, and then other players who don't have rogues are going, what the heck, what's going on? They're barely getting a slap on the wrist, so it's really tough to say. I will be playing my Subtlety Rogue probably throughout this weekend, and then on to Tuesday to get my like first-hand experience with it, to see what it's like, especially because I'm not going to be like the, you know, the pro rank 1 level, more of just like the intermediate level, maybe a little bit above intermediate level, so you get a, you know, better overall scope of its playstyle for Subtlety. But I think Subtlety will still be really good just with the 16-second DR and stuns, and it synergizes really well with all the ranged DPS pretty much that are looking really good at the moment. But Assassination runs out of energy, runs out of steam. It's kind of spooky with the Deathmark window. and that's basically maybe it's B tier just because of the death mark window. Like you can cheese some kills with it, but it's like you just all in. You press all that, and it's like the most obvious visuals and just easily countered, and then you're done. You're out of steam at that point. So I don't see it being much higher than B. I think that's the most I can give it. Augmentation Evoker, not seeing any changes for it. I don't see a lot of it. I just automatically drop it here, but it could maybe be somewhere in here as well. But I'm just going to leave it here for now. It's just I'd never see it, which means that I can't imagine it's doing too well. Otherwise, if it was insane, I think a lot more people would be re-rolling to it. But from my understandings from playing it on the beta, was its damage was just pretty low. So like you can be a support, sort of, but it's just not. It's not really fitting too well into the meta at the moment. It also functions as like a counter melee, which maybe, but I just feel like Devastation is just more straightforward and does more effective damage. Blood DK is definitely decent. I think the Chains of Ice, Death Grip, Battleground situations are good. Damage output, maybe not the highest, but I'm going to just put it through like middle of the pack here. Guardian Druid, probably still decent, especially with mobility. I'm actually going to slap it onto A tier. We don't see any changes for these. It's just where I'm kind of vibing with as far as like Battleground situation. I think the mobility here is nice. On Guardian Druid, and the Cyclones as well can be game breaking in some situations, and it's still probably insane in World PvP, even with the nerfs they came into it. I've been playing it in Mythic Plus, and my damage still is actually pretty high, so it'll probably still be pretty good in PvP. Beast Mastery Hunter, we haven't seen any changes to it. It's just a really good spec. This guy is like the sleeper. I'm putting him on A+ for now. He's just a sleeper. He's just really good, really easy, and nobody really talks about him, but he's there. And he's dominating, but nobody talks about him. He's kind of the sustained damage spec that's like in a spot where it just feels good all the time, where you kind of want to get Assassination or Affliction too. And maybe even Arms. I feel like Arms is kind of starting to catch up there, but it's just really good. Brewmaster Monk, I'm putting him up with Bear Druid. I think the damage output there is definitely good. Feral Druid, no changes for it this week. I'm trying to consider like other possible meta swaps affecting your placement for this week, because I do think Feral is good. I especially like Feral Mage compositions, and maybe even possibly Feral Warlock. I don't know so much about the Feral Hunters. I think the Feral Mage is looking a little bit more stable, at least when it comes to 3v3. But you got really good 1v1 in Battleground situations. I feel like Feral is like deserving of at least here. I do think Feral is actually really good. It has melee cleave options. It's very versatile. Has Mortal Strike. Its damage is good. I think A+ is a fair spot to predict for it. Balanced Druid, this is the first time that I'm not going to be putting it probably like super high. I think that the lethality of Star Surge is on the lower side of things. AoE build in Battlegrounds does do a lot of effective damage. Cyclone is still really good, obviously. But I think I was putting it on A+ before, but I think it's more like an A pick. I think defense can be a bit shaky for newcomers also, similar to Arcane. So these rankings are more so if you're more advanced at it. If you're new to it, you might feel more like it's C tier. So it really depends on your perspective. Devourer, Demon Hunter, has a lot of damage, but it just flops the sub-rogues. And again, the sub-rogue change is like the one we really don't know how much of an impact it's going to have. If it ends up just being a slap on the wrist, then Demon Hunters and Evokers are not going to have a good time. If it ends up being decently substantial, then you guys could start rising the ranks. So I think for me right now, I think it's probably A tier. Again, Burst class is going to probably fit better than any of these guys down here that just don't have a good finisher or don't have the survivability to actually get to the point of being able to finish. Demonology Warlock is still really good. I think it's super underrated in a lot of content. Really great lockdown. I think it and Destruction are really good picks. I think it's still going to remain to be true. Just so much crowd control with multiple diminishing returns. Destruction Warlock, I also kind of think is starting to rise up a bit. It kind of depends on the situation. Like Battlegrounds, I think it absolutely smashes. But in Arena, it can be a bit tough in some situations. But I think it could be kind of sleeper. I'm going on A+. I think we'll reserve S for some like big names up there. But I think Demo and Destro are really good picks right now. Devastation Evoker is another one, but I'm going to slot it here on A+ as opposed to S tier. I think that the Subtlety Rogues kind of put you in your place a lot of the times, but it's much like BM, just kind of just straightforward, really simple, and very effective. Healer balance is really tough for this one. Disc Priest didn't get nerfed at all, so I do kind of think that Disc is going to be riding pretty high with the amount of damage that it's able to put out right now. I just don't know if I want to put it on A+ or A. I think I'll put it on A+ for now. might be a bit of a high end ranking for it. I could see it going lower, but again, it's a prediction. Not going to be 100% of the money with this, but that's where I'm feeling it at the moment, given how much damage it's capable of doing and its synergy with the rogue mages and the feral druids, and even the caster comps. Discipline priest can be really good. Elemental shaman, it's just kind of average. Like the buffs were nice, but I played it a little bit more. I'm winning some decent amount of lobbies, but much like Boomkin, it just kind of doesn't have that oomph that a lot of these classes towards S and A plus kind of have. So I'm tempted to put it on like B, but I could see it being on A at the same time. So I'll put it on A for now, but I could see this being on B as well. Enhancement shaman, really good synergy with a lot of the classes like rogue, warrior, and windwalker. And I think those are still going to be really good specs for it. And it's decent at shutting down all the casters. I think Enhance, although they are targeting Stormbringer, bring Tempest down a bit, which is going to affect your overall sustain. I kind of wish that they targeted the Ascendant's Doomwind's window as opposed to the Tempest window. Obviously, when the Tempest is stacked up in that window, it gets pretty absurd. But Tempest outside of that's going to feel maybe a bit weaker. I still think Enhance is going to be really good, though. I'm throwing it up onto A+. Frost Decay, they didn't want to give you guys the 4% damage what they gave you for PvE and PvP. It's good, but it's not unholy. I feel like it's, again, very predictable, very easy to play around, kind of feast or famine still. So I think B tier is probably the best that I could do you for. This is a hot topic, ironically, with Fire Mage. I don't know if it's going to go down too much. They are targeting the combustion window, which is exactly the right thing to do. But I think it's still going to be strong. Now, is it S tier strong? It really it kind of depends on if you're the best player in the game, right? Like, not the best player in the game might not feel as strong. I still feel like it's been simplified a bit though. I'm thinking it's still going to be S. Again, I'm taking that's like a conservative approach. Maybe it falls a bit down to A+, and we kind of get a blend here, and it gets really tough to decide who's actually the best. But I kind of think it's still going to be the best. Frost Mage, really good, except when it gets attacked, it gets like spam interrupted on Ray of Frost. I'm going to put it on A+. I think this is a bit easier to disrupt as opposed to Fire. But again, the trade-off, like I've been talking about, is that Frost has higher survivability with double barrier charge and snares that are constantly out for melee. So it's a bit easier to live. But I think overall oomph is still going to go to Fire Mage, and for the ease of that oomph. Fury Warrior, we saw nerfs actually to Mountain Thane and the buffs to Slayer. The Mountain Thane nerfs could be pretty big. I didn't even realize how good it was until I started watching some Fury Warriors on Twitch. I was like, okay, that's good that they caught that. But they nerfed it pretty substantially. So I kind of think that Fury and Arms are going to have this weird collision point this week where they're very similar in scope. And I think where the difference is going to be is that Arms is better into double melee and Fury will be better into casters. That's usually historically how they have been. And usually double melee is not like a meta comp. Although I guess maybe it actually has been more in the, for the past two expansions it has, but maybe now, maybe it could still be. And so you'd want to switch between them depending on the circumstance. But I think that they're going to be having a head-on collision as far as which one's actually the stronger of the two. Havoc Demon Hunter, I think it's just kind of down here in B tier land. It's like it can work, but it's getting absolutely crushed by the Subtlety Rogues. So it really depends on how badly Subtlety Rogue comes down, because if that they're really popular right now. If it stays up like that and Marksman Hunter popularity stays up like that, I don't see you getting out of this, as well as Enhance. Like a lot of you guys can just get dookied on and clobbered by those specializations. So I think B is probably the best that I could do for it. It's like you can make it work, but it's lacking the finishing burst. Whereas Frost has a finishing burst, but it's kind of lacking the sustain, the opposite issues. Holy Priest, I think, is going to be good. I actually think it's going to be good. I think A+ maybe. It's, again, Holy and Disc could swap. It depends if we're talking about tournaments. I think Holy might be better than Disc when we're talking tournaments because the instant CC. When we're talking like overall ladder gameplay, though, I think Disc is better. The damage is just great throughput, overall value. So it depends on the circumstance. I will do PvP tournament tier lists as well as we get closer to the tournament. Holy Paladin, this is a big one. They nerfed your Hammer of Wrath damage during Wings by a lot. I think that could have big implications on shifting you out of Weapons of Order and into Herald of the Sun. And if they do shift you out of that, you're going to be losing, I think, quite a bit of damage. So I think Paladin, I think people are giving it way too much respect. People should be just targeting this in every game. I think that it just falls over. like a little domino, just do, and then the whole thing falls over. So I'm thinking maybe it'll still be A tier because it does have cooldowns that are really strong to trade and it's effective into rogues. But I think as more people figure out that you can just attack the paladin, it's pretty much any comp in the game. If you see them run in, like they will fall over really fast. I think that they're going to start plummeting. So I'm bringing them down from like A plus or S, I think, from before to A, and I could see paladin fall even further. Marksmanship hunter, I still kind of want to say that it's S tier. I just feel like it's, especially on ladder. Again, when we talk tournament, maybe it's not S tier, but on ladder, I think it's just very hard to coordinate to stop it. And the black arrow buff that's coming in, I think is more than going to compensate for the aim shot nerf. And the aim shot nerf is not really going to do a lot during the cooldown window anyway. So it's still going to absolutely blast there. So I think Marks is still going to be the go-to. Could be wrong, but I think it's still going to be the go-to. Mistweaver Monk, I think, could have a fall off here, mostly because they targeted the Life Cocoon cooldown, where it was like before with Thunder Focus Tea, they just had Life Cocoon, so like the whole game, just lay on hands, bubble shield the whole game. Fistweaver is also a very niche situation where it's viable, so it depends on if it has a comp to enable it, and it's not fighting things that counter it. I do think Mistweaver, I'm still, again, being conservative with it because it was just so good and it seems like it gets nerfed every week and it doesn't move. Kind of being conservative with it by putting it onto A+, but it could be falling lower than that. But it's definitely getting more in line with the other healers. Outlaw Rogue might stand a bit of a better chance than Assassination. I think it's one of those things where it's like, if Subtlety isn't crazy good or if Outlaw can do more damage than it, then Outlaw is going to have a shot there. It's definitely not unviable, but I think Subtlety is outshining it significantly. Preservation Evoker, you guys are just suffering again because Outlaw Rogue is so good. Don't know if that's going to really change for you too much, unfortunately. And now we see Resto Druid getting big buffs. I feel like for me, Preservation is, where do we want to put it? This is a tough one. I kind of want to put it here. My instincts are telling me to put it on B tier. It's just kind of mid. But I could see it being maybe A tier. Again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing Battlegrounds, it's S tier because it's just a crazy good flag carrier. I don't know where I want to put this one. It's very hard. I think that's good though. The healer balance, I'm gonna put it here on A, but I could see it being B. Prot Warrior, I don't think it's got a huge amount of damage right now. I think it's probably not too crazy. I think Prot Paladin is probably still really good up here with the other tanks, even with the 10% damage nerf. Although the nerf on Hammer of Wrath is pretty big. Maybe it falls down here actually with the Hammer of Wrath nerf. You still have the spinning hammers though, and the spinning hammers hit really hard. They didn't target that for Ret or Prot. I think A tier. It's probably still A tier. Resto Druid is the one I'm taking a big gamble on. I think that with the nerfs to Life Cocoon with Paladin, I think already having the inherent weakness of being trained and then the damage down on Hammer of Wrath, that Resto Druid has a chance to like, this is my biggest like, whew, this guy's going straight to the top pick. I think it could do really well with the overall healing buffs that they gave it, the regrowth focused buffs, and the type of utility that it has. It's just like, it was just one good buff away, I think, and this is the good buff. I think Resto Druid climbs up here to the top. Rat Paladin, they nerfed the Hammer of Wrath and Wings, but they didn't nerf your spinning hammer, so you still have your guaranteed kill window. And then they buffed your Final Verdict and Templar Verdict, so you've got more damage outside of Wings. That sounds really good. They did nerf your Spell Warding, your Magic Bop, not going to last as long, which I think is going to be significant. There were some games I was playing yesterday on Holy Paladin where I would have lost if the Spell Bop ended the 4 seconds faster than it does right now. So I do think that could have some impact, but I'm still a little bit just uncertain. I think Ret is still going to be really good. Just overall, has the strongest 1v1 still in the game across all PvP modes. Great synergy with a lot of classes. But I do think the spell warding in like wizard situations, like shuffle especially, that could catch you. That could bite you. But your damage is probably going to end up in the same spot. And you still have your finishing with the spinning hammers. Resto Shaman, I find it interesting what they're doing. They're targeting Lightning Lasso and buffing its damage. They're targeting Electrocute, but Electrocute does literally 0 damage, so 35% buff on it is 0. It's literally, I don't see it. And with how competitive the PvP Shaman talents are, you're not going to drop it for like an extra 500 damage on Electrocute. I just don't see it. I feel like that one needed to be buffed much more significantly if it was actually going to be a viable option. The other one on Lightning Lasso is interesting, and that's maybe Ellie could actually be higher if it actually does do damage. It's buffed it by 450%. I wanted to log on and actually see the actual numbers for it, like I looked for Electrocute, but I feel like it's still not going to be that high. And the cooldowns are still weak. I still think it's very bursty. I think it'll be tough to keep up with these Rets. And Hunter still, and Druid is getting so good. I think you're probably at best like here. Like you can probably operate, but you're probably still the weakest healer. Shadow Priest, is very tough. They nerfed your Mind Blast, but they buffed your Shadow or Death. They buffed your Apparitions. So it's going to give you a lot more AoE damage, which is generally not that great, but you are tanky enough that you can survive to the point where it actually starts to sink in. I fought a few Shadow Priests where it was like I was like on sabbatical at the start of the game, but then Dampening came in and I'm like, oh my god, I'm frightened. I can't deal with this. So I think unlike Affliction, like you do have the survivability to actually get to the point where your dots start cooking. So I kind of think Shadow is more A+. Might be a bit of a higher ranking for it, but I do think it's aiming more A+. I think Subtlety Rogue is still S tier. I think the stuns are just invaluable, even if the nerf, maybe prevents you from being able to 100-0 a target just completely by yourself. It's so much synergy with these high burst ranged, and I feel like it's still kind of a slap on the wrist, which is like you can do that. They can keep doing small tweaks, but they're going to have to keep doing them. I really hope that they target cooldown windows like they did with Fire Mage. Unlike with Hunter, they just targeted aim shot baseline, didn't target the cooldowns. I think targeting the cooldowns is going to be really important with a lot of these classes. And same thing with Ret, like they didn't target the spinning hammers that are doing a huge amount of damage. Survival Hunter, you guys got a 4% buff, but I don't think it's made. I don't think you're a terrible spec though. I think A is probably okay. It's just the other specs are ranged a bit safer and way blastier, but I don't think survival is awful. It could use like a little bit of a buff again, just a little bit more. Unholy DK, I think it's still A+. I think it's still a really good option. Although it might start to have some issues given the warrior buffs coming in, might start to have some issues there. But I think it's still, with Chains of Ice, kiting the melee, I think it's still a really good one. It's just those warrior cleave situations could be a bit tough for you, and in BGs you're really good with Chains of Ice. Vengeance Demon Hunter I never see. I'm going to put it down here on C tier. It's got mobility carrying it, but I feel like its damage is just not there. Is it really as bad as Prot? I don't know if it's as bad as Prot, but never see it. So it's like this is literally just a shot in the dark as far as where its viability is. Windwalker Monk I think is still going to be really good because again they nerfed some things like Rising Sun Kick, but then they buffed Fist. So it's like, is it a nerf or is it just like it's going to end up in the same spot? I think Windwalker is still going to be S. I'm jumping it up to S tier along with these guys. I think these guys are like the triple threat still. It's going to be, I think DPS wise, it still might lean to a very similar meta, but the healers I think are going to be, except Shaman, you guys got, unless they buff you those talents even more or give us a fourth PvP talent, which I actually really hope they do in the 0.1 patch, which is usually like the main quote-unquote PvP patch where they do like some big talent update string for an expansion. I kind of hope they just give us a fourth PvP talent. I think that would be the best way. Like adding another one to the pile of talents you can never take because the other ones are so good baseline. I just don't see that being worthwhile. Honestly, it'd be faster development. They can get the next expansion out faster if they just did that. And I think it would be more fun for the game. Just doing a fourth talent slot like with Resto Shaman. Like, oh, now I can get Electrocute because I can get all the other ones that I need along with it. And you can kind of fiddle around with it more. So I do think the healer meta is likely the most to shake up. And I think it's a wait and see with the cooldown changes that they use to target these guys. I still think they're going to be really good, and I still think we need like a little bit more on some specializations here, a little bit more here, a little bit trim down here, and I think the game will be in a crazy spot. Like I don't even know 100% if that gets accomplished. I think it should be really fun. So that's my prediction for it. Again, just a guess. Don't hold it against me here, and you should pick the spec that you want to play. Just giving you an idea if you go in there on something and you're like, why isn't this working for me? It might have to do with your spec not aligning with the meta. I do believe if you're like the best of any of these things that you're obviously going to make it work, but if you're just like the average player logging on, that you're probably going to get more effectiveness out of things towards the top with less time committed than from the things at the bottom. But to each their own. Thank you guys very much for the support as always, and I will see you in the next one.